ask y'all just I don't know, some forgiveness stories or stories that you had, whether it be in marriage or whether it be just something that was just like a really big thing where you was like, man, I had to forgive this person for this offense, and that was hard. I had to walk through that. Like, I'm curious just what's going on in y'all's head.
Man. This one's real because I think there's so many nuance to this story. And one that we really haven't shared.
We have not shared on
out there publicly for what we're known for. So those like we have our brand every day with H&K. And so they see this couple that's out there just loving on each other, doing skits and dancing, having fun, talking about nuances of love and marriage and the difficulties and the things. But behind the scenes, there's an incident that's like, oh, we haven't talked about. And because of that, it's tough for me to say it because I was the offender. And so this was prior to us getting married. So
take your time with it.
So when I
take your time with it.
That's all right.
So you saw Zoo. We were dating, and I went abroad, and I did my semester at sea, went around the world. Literally, probably like a week. I don't think you meant like you're like drinking. That was like I wanted to get down. I would party. I have a drink, and we rolling. But in that, I had a one night stand with this girl. Don't remember any of like very vaguely. But the thing was, I never told her. It was one of those things for me. It was like, I'm going to take this to my grave. I never told none of my boys. It wasn't like, oh, I'm telling the boys like this. I told no one. And in my head, I continued this lie of it happened, but like it's to the side. It wasn't until this happened. This is now 2008.
This happened. Are you talking about the reveal?
No. Oh. This is when it happened. When I cheated was 2008.
At that point, we had been together 3 years.
Yeah. Yep. And so we were dating. We got married in 2009. But I didn't reveal it until 2022. So I had held this.
Novi was 2 months old. Yeah, y'all are.
Novi was time. It had time to marinate.
It marinated for 14 years. Was that 14? Yeah. And so it was a thing where telling her was probably the most cringe-worthy thing I ever done. But it was funny because it was like a moment like you talked about in a previous episode. I was talking to a friend of mine who was telling me about his infidelity with his wife and how they're trying to get through it. And I'm like ministering to him. And it was like, I get off the phone and it was like, you just minute you just minuted somebody, yet you're holding on to something. And it was like, oh. So I'm like telling her my conversation, and she's like, yeah, that's wild. Have you ever did anything like that? Ooh. And it was like, now, hey, like, but yeah, no, that was
I'll
that.
Let you finish.
That was that. But the thing is, and I'll you can start interjecting. But the thing is, Hope has always had this feeling that something has happened prior. And she used to ask me time and time again in that 14. No. Why you asking me that? No, I've never done that. Yeah. No, we good. We're good. Like, no, I've never done anything. So it was just like,
before you go on,
yeah.
Can I ask, how was your demeanor as you, like, because she kept asking, right? So like, were you at one point just like, it reminds me of Peter. When Peter, they said, you know him, you know Jesus. And Peter was like, dang it, I said I don't know him.
Right.
I think I got so good with the lie to the point where like I believed it myself and I was gonna ensure that she believed it. So it wasn't like, oh, I got like, oh, stop asking me, and where she's like, oh, you tripping something up. It was like, no, babe, like I love you. Like there's nothing here. Ooh. I like the acting skills trying to be on point. Like,
That's strong.
But and it was that serious. Any interjections you wanted to
No,
make?
I just keep going. I know.
She's waiting to unload.
Let you have your-
I'm gonna hold it. But it was wild because in that moment, I knew she was asking me for a reason.
Right.
There's the Holy Spirit speaking
Absolutely.
to her about this, and at some point it was gonna come out, and everything that happens in the dark comes out. Like, and that reveal was so wild. And for me, I never took the time to understand why it happened, like what my thought process is. Why do I sitting there drinking the way I am to the point where I'm not remembering what's happening? But that moment when I told her, and I'm like in tears trying to explain myself, and I tell her the grace and love and like,
Okay, hold on.
it
Before
wasn't
we
a
get there,
pop off that I thought it would be. Was wild, but okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get to the sweet part yet because there is still.
Before we get to Grace,
Yeah,
and
before we get to
we're gonna go
yes.
back.
And I think so. The way, like, you told it really well. I think that when he came to me, I remember this like it was yesterday. Of course, when he came to me, I remember I was sitting on the toilet, and I was like,
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We love the transparency.
Yeah, transparency here. And so Kadero walked by, and of course, he's in the doorway, and we're talking about the situation, and I felt like that was an opportunity to be like, that's crazy. Have you ever done that? Knowing the answer, another opportunity to escape.
And my
tell the
normal self
truth.
be like, no, like.
So when you say knowing the answer, meaning you're saying you knew he was not telling the truth.
Something had happened. And the thing is, like, the Holy Spirit, he speaks to me a lot. And he was specific that it had to deal with, like, what he did. And so it was a thing of, okay, I'm going to just keep asking you until you feel like the opportunity has presented itself to tell the truth. And the one thing that I said, because this is when, H&K is still kind of growing, and like we've hit like a significant amount of followers.
We at this point,
And I said, one thing I'm not going to do is look like a fool. I said, the bigger that we get, or the more exposure that we get, I was like, I don't need anybody coming out the woodworks talking about, oh, well, he lying because we did this and that, and then I'm looking dumb on something. And
that
so
part.
I was like, tell me now, like, has anything happened?
And the funny thing is, I remember when we first started, like we were going to say, all right, we're going to do this H&K thing. Because at one point we had this little 200, it was just our page together. But we were like, all right, no, we're going to make it. She asked me then, like, all right, before we do this, if this thing does happen to be something, is there anything you need to tell me? And I'm like, no, like, we good. Let's do this. So all these things are now replaying as she's now again asking me, because I'm like, we're over 100, like, people, we are done some things, and we've been out there, and we've been on podcasts, and people are and I'm like, no infidelity in our marriage, because in my head there was
wasn't
no
in our
infidelity
marriage.
in our marriage.
You know what I'm saying? Real slick,
Little
right?
play on words. Little
Real
play on
slick.
words.
Real slick. And so the whole time I'm like, now the first thing I think about is like, well, what does this make us look like? Like, okay, well, we're here. So, and I told him, I said, I noticed that he was ready to share when I asked him, and he was like, well, let's define, those questions started coming out. I said, Kadero, I don't have time for this. What is it? And so we done went to Wingstop to pick up some wings. At this point, Novi is probably like 10 weeks old, maybe. So my hormones are everywhere. I'm still feeling a certain type of way because I had a C-section surgery. Like, it's just a lot going on at this point, right? And so we done went to Wingstop because I was like, I just need to get out of the house for a minute. We came and we're sitting in the parking lot. I'm like, Kadero, I just need to lay out everything that has happened. And we finally get back to Wingstop. I have our daughter and like sitting here, and we're in the kitchen, and he's just like he's beating that bush. Like, so y'all.
Not even beating around the bush.
No, he's just beating the bush. And I'm like, Kadero, just tell me. And so he's like, it was so annoying. And so he told me what happened. He told me when it happened, all that stuff. And I was like, okay. And it was, y'all, that you could cut the tension. But he was like, what are you thinking? Like, where we go from here? And I was like, I just give me a minute. So I walked away, had a huge cry in our bedroom. And then I came back, and then I'll let you pick up because you was talking about the grace and like all that stuff. You getting teary eyed
yeah,
now?
man.
Why?
You know me. I don't ever like this, man.
Oh, I
No, you go
know.
ahead. Keep going.
know.
I don't.
So it was just a thing
Pass me a
of,
tissue.
okay, everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was him.
I
He
know.
did it.
I know. So it was in that cry in the bathroom, there was so much hurt. There was so much like you go to questioning. This has been a lie that's happened our entire marriage. Like I've been asked you these questions.
Yeah.
And you blatantly would say like, nah. And so I'm like, well, is anything else a lie? Like you start questioning
Yeah.
everything. And it's like, then you think about, well, who was she? What did she look like? Like, and the thing I think that hurt, one piece that hurt kind of deep was the timing of it. It was a week before he was coming back. And I was like, you couldn't hold out 1 week. Like here I am at home. And I'm not painting a picture like I'm this perfect girl or whatever, but I'm like, I'm going to church. Like I'm praying for your safety overseas. Like I'm waiting for you to come back. I'm
Lord's
holding
work.
up my part,
You're
right?
doing the deep work.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm holding up my part. And I was like, you were 7 days away from coming home. And that happened.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, dang. And then I know like, I feel like I've been surrounded by men and like my family or like friends of family that have been unfaithful and things like that. And so it was like, part of me was like, man, I got it good prior to knowing, because I was like, we've never had to experience that. So I think that's when Kadero kind of broke down, because he wanted to be the
That was it for me. Like for me, that's I think the piece where the guilt, the shame, the condemnation for me came in, because here I was. I always said I'm gonna be different from my dad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be different from my granddad.
yeah.
I wasn't gonna do that. And put my not even my wife, but my partner in that situation. And so it was like I failed. And so I'm explaining, one, we done put ourselves out there to this world of this perfect couple. We created this fairy tale. And, you know, as much as they say, don't look at your messages, don't look at the number of DM. You got a good man, you got a good husband, and now that's throwing this, pumping up the chest. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. But in the back, like, nah, you not that. And so, but I wanted to continue to throw that persona. And
You are that though.
I thank
you
you.
are that.
In that moment, I just didn't
Yeah.
feel that. And so it was like, my dad did it, her dad did it. And it was like the important men in her life continue to disappoint her. And that was like, for me. Like I couldn't hold up the baton for that. I couldn't just, like, something simple as just because you had too much to drink, bro. Like that one, it was a simple moment where because I had that part. I'm that crowd pleaser, that part. Like that was me. I'm that people
Life of the
person,
party.
life of the party,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be that, and it went too far.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the piece where all I could think about is, I'm just another nigga that's just like everybody else. And I was like, man, like
That's
always
that's a real thought,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
I'm just another
Stereotypical.
stereotype.
Yeah.
All men cheat. Black men, they don't love us. They ain't treating us like I felt like that. And so in that moment, it was just like, so where do we go from here?
And so, and I'll pick that up. So when I went back to the kitchen, I asked him, I was like, why? You know, like, what, why? And I tell you, I feel like it was nobody but the Holy Spirit that was present in that moment, because it was like I had my cry and then I just listened. And the way normally Kadero is kind of like, hard to express, like articulate himself and like things like that when it comes to serious topics like this. But the way that he did it that night, it was like I had an ear, like I was hearing not comparing myself to God, but I was listening with a godly ear. Like, what was the driving force behind it? Where was he at mentally there? Where was he at emotionally at that time? What, struggles was he dealing with, or things like that? And it was like, when he was talking, I literally feel like I saw that younger version of Kadero and explaining himself. And I could not get mad. Of course, it hurt, but I was like, mentally and emotionally and spiritually where he was at, I'm like, I know that you're not there now. So it was not easy to accept, but it was like I just had like a grace for him. And I appreciate the way that he articulated himself to me. And so I'm proud of you for doing that. The way that you
Hey man, we all proud of you, brother.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just, it was different. So now after that, I'm not saying that like it all just went away.
No, absolutely
Because there
not.
was so
Therein
many
begins the
questions.
process
Right.
of forgiveness.
There's
The
the beginning.
process of forgiveness. So, I mean, there was, of course, many questions that I had that 2:00 in the morning, I'm up thinking, hey, I need you to answer this question.
I know that feeling, dog.
Yeah. It's like, what? The baby in the bassinet over here. I'm like,
What? Still voice ain't right. You like, What?
I had
Mouth
questions.
dry?
Yeah.
Yo, but in my head, I be thinking this. It's in those moments the truth come out, right? When you in that
Yeah,
sleepy,
that sleepy
subconscious state.
Yeah.
That's when the truth
Hey.
come out. So I'm like, all right, what did I say?
Yeah.
And low key
'Cause
trying to
that's-
hide behind sleepiness.
Look. But, right.
Talking about
Right. Look, but I'll tell you, the Holy Spirit wasn't done. And he was like, because at that point, Kadero had just told me it was during college, like with this girl or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so then the Holy Spirit spoke to me again and he was like, there's more. Like, you need to ask him these questions. And I was like, okay. And so I asked him, I was like, did you tell me the whole truth? Like, I feel like it's something else that's missing during like your time away, semester at sea or whatever. And then you told me where it was. And then the connections just made it worse because I was like, the place that it happened is where we did our 10-year wedding vow renewal, like in that country.
Oh, in
like,
the same country.
Same place. And I was like, Kadero's like, how do you feel about it? And I was like, we here. We we renewed our vows. We're okay, whatever. But yeah, it's just like more and more was just revealed and we're still dealing with it. Like that's still fresh. Like 2 years.
2 years ago.
dang,
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, just 2 years ago.
2022.
And that happened back in 2008.
Yeah.
And so it's like-
y'all just started the process of processing it.
Yeah, just started it.
Meet me at the altar.